In today's show, some of the Blazers get blown out by the Denver Nuggets, and it's trade rumor season. Could Myles Turner or Jerami Grant be headed to Portland? And who might the Blazers be sending out in return? It's time to visit the rumor mill. Welcome to Locked On Blazers. Let's get into it.
You are Locked On Trailblazers, your daily Portland Trailblazers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
What up, world? It's your past first point guard and Trailblazers reporter, Mike Richmond. You're listening to another episode of Locked On Blazers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, available wherever you get podcasts, and now also on YouTube. If you haven't subscribed to the YouTube channel and you're listening to my voice, do me a favor. Remedy that right now. Go to YouTube, subscribe to Locked On Blazers, support the show. I would truly appreciate it. In today's episode, we're going to talk a little bit about an ugly Blazers loss where they were extremely shorthanded. And then we're going to visit the rumor mill. Jake Fischer of Bleacher Report has a whole big story kind of setting the stage for what might come in the weeks ahead leading up to the February 10th trade deadline. A lot of it involves the Blazers. They're expected to be active, and we'll talk about what that activity might look like. But let us start here with the Blazers game. They lost 140-108 to the Denver Nuggets tonight in Denver. This is going to be your fastest recap in the West, like we do at this time. No Anthony Simons in this one. He joined Norman Powell and CJ McCollum and Damian Lillard and Cody Zeller and Larry Nance Jr. on the injured list. And that meant the Blazers only had Dennis Smith Jr., Ben McLemore, Robert Covington, Nasir Little, and Yusuf Nurkic in your starting lineup. And then 5 guys off the bench: Trendon Watford, Greg Brown III, Tony Snell, Keldon Blevins, and CJ Ellaby. And everyone who was in uniform played. And it didn't matter. They got spanked by a Nuggets team coming off a really bad loss. They blew a 25-point lead and lost a game. You knew the Nuggets were going to be game for this one. And the Blazers were just super shorthanded. It was over quickly. They gave up 41 points in the third quarter. They were down 17 at the break. Didn't get better in the third quarter. And then nobody played their regulars. Some starters had to play for the Blazers because they only had 10 guys. Dennis Smith Jr. played a little bit in the fourth quarter. But no regulars for the Nuggets down at the stretch, and they win going away 140-108. That's truly your fastest recap in the West this time. Blazers were led by Ben McLemore, who finished with 18, hit 4 3-pointers. Dennis Smith Jr. had 17 and 8. Everybody in the starting lineup scored in double figures. I guess that's a positive. 10, 8 and 6 from Yusuf Nurkic, 14 from Nasir Little, 10 and 7 with 4 steals for Robert Covington, who really struggled early and finally made some shots late. Nikola Jokic finished with 20 points, 8 boards, 7 assists to go with 2 blocks. Will Barton finished with 21 points, had a very scary fall in the third quarter. It looks like he got concussed. They did not call it a concussion, though. They called it a neck strain. He got up under his own power and left and did not return. Nuggets got huge games off the bench from Zeke Naji, who had 16 and 9, Facundo Campazzo, who had 8 and 12 to go with 4 steals, and 17 from Bones Highland. We don't really need to talk too much about this one. This is Locked On Blazers, right? We're going to talk about it a little bit, but like here are my takeaways from this. Anthony Simons missed this game for personal reasons. The Blazers didn't say it, but he's attending services for his grandfather in Orlando. So he'll be back soon. Chauncey Billups said after the game, he expects him to be back Saturday. I do too. It's, this is a family absence, not one that's going to be prolonged. Larry Nance Jr. was on the bench. Like he's on this trip to start the trip. Seems like he could be back soon. And, earlier this week, CJ McCollum and his partner welcomed in their first child, their son. And so, hey, CJ McCollum likely to rejoin the team soon, if not Saturday, then early next week. At least that was the indication from Chauncey Billups pregame, who said that he expects CJ McCollum to rejoin the team soon. So, I guess the cavalry could be coming back. Norman Powell approaching a full Saturday will be a little less than a week in protocols. So he's in the health and safety protocols. No updates on his sort of status, but he should be back relatively soon, like the middle of next week, unless he's having some other medical complications that we're not aware of. So we hope Norm's doing well, but in general, Like, there's just not a lot to take away from this game because the Blazers are super duper shorthanded. For Team Tank, great loss. It's just, not a lot of good developmental minutes here to be had. My really big takeaway is free Greg Brown. He played the last 9.5 minutes of this game, immediately came in and had to put back dunk. Tony Snell played 17 minutes and I have no idea why. Just flip flop those minutes, give those 17 minutes to Greg Brown. Like, he doesn't need to play 25. I don't think they're missing like a really talented player. I just think there's zero value for this team to play Tony Snell. Stop. Just have him be the last dude off the bench. And if he's mad, he's a veteran on a minimum contract. Like, just explain the deal. He knows. These guys read the news. They know that this team is headed in a different direction, I think is the best way to say this. Free Greg Brown. Let's just have Greg Brown play more. Maybe not every night, but this night especially, Greg Brown should have played 17 minutes. No reason for him to be the break the glass, the game's over guy off the bench. He might not be good. That's like a feature, not a bug. You want him to be not good. Free Greg Brown. Not a great Nas game. This is, sort of big minutes is kind of just like watching Nazir Little play better, but he did shoot 10 3-pointers, and my goal is for him to shoot 5 3-pointers or more every single game. So good on you, dog. Couple that you took off the dribble that were a little bit crazy, but without better guys to sort of draw the attention of the offense, without basically Anthony Simons to really be scary for someone they have to guard. The rest of the Blazers offense can't function the same way. Dennis Smith Jr. does well to set guys up, but people don't respect his jump shot. They're not worried about his in-between game. Teams are just going under and clogging the paint on Dennis Smith, and that makes life harder for everyone. And without a guy who can really create advantage off the bounce, the Blazers' other parts, which are dependent on other playmakers such as Anthony Simons, aren't as good. And that's pretty much all we need to say about this game. On to Washington, to quote Bill Belichick. On to Cincinnati. Saturday, they play the Wizards. Another game that you'd rather the Blazers lose, I guess. We will talk about that one on Monday's show, but we don't need to spend any more time on this Nuggets game. Let's talk about trade rumors. Jake Fischer, the Bleacher Report, wrote a big story today about sort of a scene setter for what's to come, or what's the latest scuttlebutt around the league. So let's talk about that butt that's being scuttled. It includes Myles Turner and Jerami Grant as potential targets for the Portland Trail Blazers. That sounds fun. Come back in the second segment. We'll talk all about it. Before we do that, though, let's talk about Bet Online, the fastest and easiest way to bet on all your sports action, whatever that action is. Basketball, football, we got the playoffs coming up this weekend. The regular season rolls on in the NBA. We got college hoops. We got soccer all over the globe. The NHL is back in action. There's combat sports. You can even play your favorite Vegas casino games, all available on betonline.ag. So go on over to that website on your mobile device or on your desktop. Use the promo code LOCKEDON. You'll get a 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. That's promo code LOCKEDON for a 50% welcome bonus. betonline.ag. That's BetOnline, where the game starts. All right. Let's leave a 32-point blowout with Blazers giving up a $140 in the past. Not a particularly good defensive effort from the old pinwheels, but who cares? Let's talk about what the pinwheels might look like after the trade deadline. Jake Fischer of Bleacher Report wrote a long story today. You can find it on the Bleacher Report app or on bleacherreport.com, kind of detailing the hook of it is like what's going to happen with Ben Simmons, because I guess NBA people who break news are just like legally supposed to talk about Ben Simmons and say nothing's going to happen. You gotta mine your sources, do a really good job, and tell the general public that nothing's going to happen with Ben Simmons. That's kind of the hook of it. But some of it is like with now Damian Lillard heading for what is almost certainly a season-ending injury. Will that sort of change Philly's approach? If they were waiting for Dame to be traded and now Dame's hurt, will that kind of change it up? But in sort of that sort of larger story, little like sort of vignettes looking at scenes from around the league or possibilities around the league, the Blazers are mentioned a couple times, and they are tied to two players who have been, sort of like two of the biggest names that have very clearly been on the trade block, and two names that I would be excited to see here with the Portland Trail Blazers. According to Fischer, the Portland was considered a, quote, strong destination for Myles Turner, at least earlier in the year. It's unclear if that's still the case, because the reporting suggests that when the Blazers were like trying to get into the playoffs, that Myles Turner they were considered a strong destination for Myles Turner. And Fischer reports that the asking price for Myles Turner is multiple first round picks. That's kind of always the starting asking price for like starting level players for teams like that. And then you kind of work down from there. The Blazers can't offer multiple first round picks. Their first round pick is lottery protected and owed to the Chicago Bulls until 2028, which means if the Blazers make the playoffs, which they won't, then the Bulls get the pick. But the Blazers are going to miss the playoffs, whatever, Nas willing. And so the Blazers will keep their pick. Like if they're a lottery team, they keep their pick. So it's important for the Blazers. That's why they're in tank mode, keep their pick, right? The Blazers just don't have picks to trade. Eventually they might, but they don't have picks to trade as we stand here today. So their offering for Myles Turner would be, it wouldn't be Yusuf Nurkic because the Pacers aren't going to take back another center. That's the whole damn point. So like, forget that, right? It can't be, that's not going to be a straight across swap. So it would have to be something like Nazir Little and Robert Covington. I could see the Pacers saying yes to that trade. And I like the idea of upgrading. I like the idea of Myles Turner in Portland. He can shoot. I think he's a better sort of lateral mover on defense to fit better towards what Chauncey Billups wants to do. Not perfect, but I think his defensive skills are probably match better for what they want to do than Yusuf Nurkic. And I think he would be an upgrade there. I think the shooting would help. He's not going to be as good of a pick and roll partner, and he's not as just sort of like bruising and big as Nurk is as a screen setter. So there are certainly some things that he's not as good at, but I think the shot blocking and the defense and the 3-point shooting is could be really valuable. And I just wanted, my whole sort of goal or vision for the Blazers is to put more athletes around Dame, and Myles Turner, if nothing else, is a little more athletic than Yusuf Nurkic. But I don't love the Nas and Rocco trade because the Blazers have so few dudes who are forwards that Nas's upside as in that spot. I wouldn't be super excited to add a center and have like 0 forwards and not a lot of way forward. Now, if they make other trades, we'll talk about them in a second. If they make other trades and get wings back there, that totally assuages and changes my sort of feelings on that. But just like in a vacuum, the Nas Rocco for Myles Turner swap, which I think is like the closest you can get to equitable without the Blazers adding draft picks. Something that looks like that, I think would help the Pacers be competitive and add some young upside player like Nazir Little. I love the idea that listener Kevin sent a while back of like a 3-team trade where you send out Nurk and Covington. Nurk goes to Charlotte, some combination of PJ Washington and Robert Covington plus other parts go to the Pacers, and the Pacers send Myles Turner to Portland. I love that trade. Who knows, like PJ Washington also rumored to be on the move. So that is the type of thing that could work. Shout out to listener Kevin, Courtside Kev, for putting that one together, because that remains a very intriguing option. But that I prefer more because you're just trading 2 guys on expiring deals and you're not giving up a position of weakness. And the most valuable position in the league is wings. Like everybody's looking for defensive wings. I'm a wings over bigs guy. I'm also flats over drums in case you're curious, but I'm a wings over bigs guy. So I wouldn't want to go all in trading my wings just to get back a center. So that's Myles Turner. Like, I think Myles Turner is a realistic, although other teams, there's certainly going to be other suitors. Fischer mentioned a handful of other teams, but Portland, a strong destination and certainly an option for Portland, a name to keep an eye on, a name I would be excited about. The other name you mentioned is a name we've also talked about a bunch here on the podcast, is Jerami Grant, forward for the Detroit Pistons. Not as clear what the asking price would be for Grant, but Fischer mentions him as a, quote, potential target for the Portland Trailblazers. A trade I teased before was CJ McCollum and Nazir Little for Jerami Grant. I like that better because Grant can play 3 and 4. You're still getting that back. He's probably more of a 4, but he can guard 3s. So it doesn't really matter what position you think he plays there. He can play one of the forward spots and defend both of them. So he's okay there. And if you're going to give out Nas, at least you get back someone at that spot, someone at that position of value on the wing. I think there's at the forward spots. That's big big rangy athletes who can defend and score are highly, highly coveted. And particularly for the Blazers, who are, if they're going to build with Damian Lillard, big rangy athletes who can defend is the number one thing you want to pair around him. Is there a situation where the Blazers get both Jerami Grant and Myles Turner? Yeah, probably. But that means that I don't think Naz or Ant are on the team, because those are your trade chips. So if you're trading for two good players, you're not going to have Nazir Little or Anthony Simons on the team. That seems like a reasonable trade-off. I wouldn't be super wild about it, but I don't think that would be a sort of a wild approach. The Blazers also want to stay under the tax line. So with all these trades, if you're cooking them up in your head or cooking them up in Trade Machine and then sending me the email screenshot, lockedonblazerspod@gmail.com. If you want to send some my way, I'll read them. I might even respond and tell you I don't like them if you're lucky. And if I do like them, I'll include them in the show. Yeah, like the Blazers want to shed $3 million by the end of trade season, by the end of the year. It's by the end of the end of the league year, they need to be under the tax line. So that's going to be important for them. Would it be important for me? Like if you're talking to me strategy wise, hell no. But I am not a billionaire estate that is running a basketball team. I am merely a podcaster sitting in my basement, yelling into the microphone by myself. So Jerami Grant, Myles Turner, linked to the Blazers, reported from Jake Fischer, who really he breaks news. He's like, Jake gets stuff. He has grown into them over the last couple of years, a guy who really is a reliable source for things that are happening in the league. He's plugged in around the world of the NBA. So if he says Myles Turner and Jerami Grant are, the Blazers are eyeing them, they are eyeing them. I believe that wholeheartedly. Obviously news breaks for a reason. There's a reason somebody would want the interest out there because it drums up more interest and blah, 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 blah. Like there's a reason to be out there, but it doesn't mean that it's false. So yeah, I think I'm excited about the idea that Jerami Grant or Myles Turner could be, the Blazers could pursue both those guys, because I think they could help. Again, you want to tank and get better for the future. So it's a tough needle to thread, but I think you can safely land either of those gentlemen and probably still accomplish your goals of missing the playoffs, because without Dame, neither of those guys on their own is going to push this team over the top. You're not like quote unquote in danger of getting too good, but when Dame's back, both of those good complementary parts to what Dame's skill set is. And the whole point of this exercise is to complement Dame's skill set. On the other side of this though, is more movement coming from the Blazers. It's not just them like concocting trades to make themselves better. Like there might be some real big action. And Jake Fischer in this same story available on Bleacher Report mentioned CJ McCollum and Norman Powell and along with Rocco and Nurk as guys who might be headed out. So let's talk a little about that to close the show. But before we do that, let's talk about Built Bar, the best tasting protein bar on the market. My favorite protein bar none. There was a time when I was searching around for a better protein bar. I had tried Built Bars and I said, hey, these are really good. I wonder what else is out there. And I failed. If you're talking bang for your buck in terms of low caloric intake, but a whole bunch of protein and deliciousness, you're just not going to find a better one. 17 to 18 grams of protein in all these bars, 130 to 180 calories, 4 to 5 grams of sugar, and no more than 5 grams of net carbs. It's a pretty darn good deal. They're also delicious. My personal favorites, peanut butter brownie, cookies and cream, but also I rock with mint brownie. I rock with salted caramel. I rock with raspberry on occasion. Whenever it's available, coconut brownie puff is in the mix. Whatever you're looking for, you'll find some, and there's limited time offers on built.com. So if there's a flavor that if you're checking, there might be a short timer that you fall in love with, and then you can wait till they re-release it again. In any case, go to built.com, use the promo code LOCKED15. You'll get 15% off your next order. That's promo code LOCKED15 for 15% off at built.com. Still a pass first point guard. Still Mike Richmond. Still listening to Locked On Blazers. Talked about what the Blazers whom the Blazers might pursue, but there's another side of that coin. Whom on the Blazers might other teams pursue? And there's some reporting on that front from Jake Fischer. I'm reading from his story on Bleacher Report is published today of setting the scene of sort of what's Published today, that's Thursday, January 13th. When I'm recording this, you're listening to this on Friday, January 14th or beyond. But I'm recording this on Thursday. And from that article, it is setting the stage for kind of what's going to happen in the run up to the trade deadline. The trade deadline is February 10th. So we're less than a month out. And, I guess we're sort of officially in trade season. Cam Reddish was traded from the Atlanta Hawks to the Knicks for a protected first round pick and Kevin Knox. Basically, the Knicks are betting that Cam Reddish pops, and the Hawks are betting that the Hornets, the pick they got from the Knicks, are good enough to make the playoffs, such that their protected pick conveys to the Atlanta Hawks. It's kind of a minor deal. Cam Reddish went to the wrong college, but I'm a believer that he's the type of player everybody wants. He's 6'8". He can defend a little bit. He can shoot a little bit. That is a coveted type of player. So trade season's here. Like, this is maybe the third trade of trade season, although one of them, Rodney Magruder, Bol got called off once it happened. But like, the momentum is happening, and I think teams that are sort of like vaguely in the hunt, like the Knicks, and hoping to get in the hunt or whatever's next, like the Hawks, like making trades, is a signal that eventually the dam's going to break and we're going to see a whole bunch of action. I had a show last week where I mentioned why I think there's going to be a whole bunch of trades. I still think we're there. Not a lot of teams are going to have cap space this summer, and it's a really weak free agent class. The way to get better is the trade market. I think we're going to see it. And that might mean that we see it from the Blazers as well. And according to Jake Fischer in the story from Bleacher Report, that he did just a wonderful job of giving us little nuggets to talk about here on the podcast. Appreciate you, Jake. That there's interest in CJ McCollum. And the thing is that there's interest in CJ McCollum probably below the Blazers' previous asking price. In the past with Neil Olshey, the Blazers were asking for the moon. They want a star. If they're going to trade CJ out, they want a star in return. In fact, there was some reporting in the past that the Blazers, this is from Kevin Ardman's via ESPN, this is years ago, but the Blazers maybe balked the Blazers balked at trading CJ McCollum for Kawhi Leonard back in the summer of 2018. So like, the asking price and even their sort of willingness to risk it was outrageous. And now with Neil Olshey out of the picture and Joe Cronin running things, maybe the asking price has changed a little bit, is the reporting from Jake Fischer. I'll push back on that a little bit. Jason Quick was on the podcast last week, actually Thursday's show last week, if you haven't listened to it. And he mentioned that he was under the impression that the Blazers' asking price for CJ McCollum remained very high. Like, they still wanted to get a star back in return. So it's, both people in a way can be right, that the Blazers have come down off of Neil Olshey's asking price, but are still asking for a lot. The reporting, the wording from Jake Fischer is pretty hilarious. It says there would be a sizable market at a lower evaluation. Yeah. Yes. If the Blazers asked for less in return for CJ McCollum, more people would be willing to give them less. That's like sort of vagaries protecting your sources. I know the game here, Jake, and I'm sure he's like super plugged in and is absolute. Like I said, he gets it. Right. But, yes. The Blazers there would be more of a market for CJ McCollum if the asking price was less. I think that is uncontroversial and certainly true. Like, just logic wise, absolutely true. But I think like you can look at it two ways. One, that's kind of how I'm looking at it. But you could look at it the other way, say like, if the Blazers want to move CJ McCollum, there are teams out there that would do it. Like, there are teams that absolutely would oblige them if their interest was to trade CJ and get some other parts back. Now, could they get back what they want? Could they get back something that helps them be good right away or improves them heading into next year? That is probably debatable. But if they want to move CJ, the reporting from Jake Fischer suggests he is absolutely not untradeable or like a negative asset where you'd have to attach Anthony Simons or Nazir Little or whatever to him to like make it happen. There is interest in trading for a dude who can really go score. I'm looking at you, New Orleans Pelicans. Y'all need a guard who's like competent. With all due respect to Devontae Graham, who once looked that way, and Nickeil Alexander-Walker, who was extremely competent when he played the Blazers, but has mostly been a poor decision maker. CJ would be a great fit there. Dude can go get a bucket. He would help. In addition to CJ McCollum, there is some speculation that Norman Powell could be traded. Powell is available or eligible to be traded after January 15th. That is this coming Saturday. So there's a chance that Norman Powell gets traded after Saturday and sometime in the lead up to the February 10th trade deadline. The reporting from Fischer suggests that Powell would, quote, be open to a new destination. Okay, so that might mean that he's not super happy with the Blazers situation. The team stinks. He thought he was getting traded to a good team. He's a weird fit on the roster, et cetera, et cetera. But also, like, it's the Blazers that will decide whether they are open to sending Norman Powell to a new destination. He's under contract for another 4 years at least a relatively palatable deal. Maybe like the last half when Powell's 32 might not be like a super palatable deal, but the next 2+ seasons are like very reasonable to pay Norman Powell, if not just like a straight up good money for Powell, like a good contract for him. I think that means like to watch both guards. I think there's a chance that Rocco, Nurk, Norman Powell, CJ McCollum all get traded. Would I bank on all four? No, but I think like between the Blazers being linked to the Myles Turner and Jerami Grants and to there being some interest in CJ McCollum, and I don't think you can come back next year with the to quote a friend, the Mick Lillard backcourt. Like I don't think you can do that. It would be, I don't know if irresponsible is the right word, but it would be bizarre if after all this you said, okay, well, maybe one more year, Damian, CJ, we'll see if that works. So like, I think you kind of have to trade CJ McCollum at some point over the next 4 months, or before the season starts in August. Right. But like, or training camp starts in August, but like, yeah, like, I don't think it's a guarantee that he gets traded because you got to figure out what the market is, and that market might shift as you head into the draft and blah, blah, blah. I think with Norman Powell, like if he's been one of the most consistent players, he's straight up good. His contract isn't super onerous. He could help as he's like a role player type of guy, but he's a dude who can score and get to the rim. Someone who can get to the rim, the Blazers would really miss his ability to put pressure on the rim. That's not a skill set they have outside of Norman Powell, but that is someone who could bring back some value. I think there's a chance the Blazers make big old moves and multiple transactions. Everyone you talk to thinks the Blazers are going to be active. And I don't mean that to say like I'm out here like fielding calls or whatever. I'm not going to misrepresent myself that way. I'm not even out here making calls right now. But Jared Greenberg mentioned it on the TNT broadcast that he had been told the Blazers are going to be super active. Jake Fischer is reporting they're going to be super active. Mark Stein has reported they're going to be super active. Jason Quick, right here in this podcast, has reported he anticipates them to be super active. Joe Cronin, when he first got the job, said they were going to be super active. Like, they're going to make trades. It's coming. It's just like, what does it look like? And I think we're getting some shape of what that looks like. It could look like Myles Turner. It could look like Jerami Grant. It could look like the end of the CJ McCollum era. And it could absolutely mean the end of Norman Powell's brief stay with the Portland Trail Blazers. All of those things are certainly on the table. I think Robert Covington and Yusuf Nurkic will both be traded. And I think there are the other two guys. So with Norman, CJ could be traded. And that means like pretty much anyone else to make the money work with Zeller and Larry Nance and Nas and Ants, like every non-Dame person on the roster could be available. And I think anyone who's plugged in the world thinks the Blazers are going to make trades. I think all of us who are maybe not as plugged in or are just sort of hoping for trades and never dreaming of being plugged in are like, there's a lot of anticipation that movement is coming. And I think we're starting to see more of that momentum heading in that direction. So I don't know, watch this space, because when it happens, you'll know where to find it right here on Locked On Blazers. That's going to do it for today's show. We'll have more shows next week, 5 days a week, free wherever you got podcasts, and also on YouTube. Make it part of your daily routine and make it your first listen. It's Locked On Blazers, your first listen every day. Tell your friends to do the same. Tell them to find us wherever they get podcasts, as well as YouTube. Just search Locked On Blazers. We'll be right there waiting for them. Appreciate you listening. Talk to you soon.